welcome to the coffee table talks. You guys, I got my coffee cup way too full. Barely made it.
Yeah, like that never happens.
I barely made it to the Hillary. I was like, no, don't drop it. Don't drop it. Plus, it was a really good excuse to show off my coffee cup from the Halcyon at Galaxy's at Disney. It was the Galaxy Star Cruiser experience that Josh and I did for our 13th wedding anniversary. So here it is. Look at that. You won't be able to get it anywhere else unless you probably go to eBay and they're going to sell it for triple. I am not selling it for triple. You can't have my cup.
It is not for sale at any price.
At all. No. Well, maybe. Depends. I got 3 little ones. We got a college thing to plan for, right?
Well, that's a pretty expensive cup.
That's how expensive that cup is going to be. All right. And yeah, that's the price right there. 3 kids through college. That's the price. Welcome to the Little Talks, you guys. Today we have Karen Mangia. We're going to talk about a little bit of burnout and wellness and whatever squirrely things that we jump off into. You know how it goes. If you're new here, welcome. We get squirrely. This is not a note-taking event. This is like sitting, listening in the background while you work kind of event. And you can also comment. Nice. Obsidian Arrow. Hi, we see you. Will, I see your test in there. Good morning, Jonathan. It's always good to see you, sir. I hope you're doing well. I know you're going to like this one about burnout and wellness too. I know some of all of us can relate very seriously to it. So with me as always, Will McCullen, the program manager for the IT Center of Wellness at PIMA Community College. Hi, I'm Rachel Arnold, the Human API. And this is Karen. Hey, Will.
I'm not the program manager of wellness.
How'd you know? That's what I was going to ask.
Center of Excellence. I'm a little too off to be a world wellness.
I thought it would be good for us to talk to Karen. I'm just saying.
This is how we know you need to take a sip of your coffee, right? I mean, it's like it helps us all focus, right?
Yeah, and if we get enough of it, we can focus on just about anything and multiple things at the same time.
No, see, well, that's the thing though. Neurodivergent, the caffeine doesn't do that. It actually makes me palatable for everyone else because I calm down. I used to drink coffee before I went to bed. That's a thing. It's a thing that happens. So anywho, back to Karen. So I met Karen through a mutual friend of ours, Michael Loggins, who has been on the coffee table. You remember Michael? He was that one in the middle of last year, that one-off that we did.
I am really bad with names.
That's okay. Don't worry.
But if you showed me a picture,
well,
I'd be there. But that's
okay. I got something for you, Will. If you go to our YouTube channel, you can go find it. It says Michael Loggins. You were there, I promise.
She has video evidence that you were there. That's the best part.
I'm in trouble.
I mean, you're a guy that's focused on evidence. That's what you were telling us in the pre-show. So now.
Right, exactly. Hey, good morning, Scott, Kim, see you there, and Chris. Hello from Denver, Colorado. I've never been to Denver. But anyway, so I met Karen through a mutual friend of ours, Michael Loggins. Will, you're going to go check out the YouTube channel and find that one. It was in the middle of Rachel working for Activision Blizzard King.
Oh, yes.
Don't worry, it was a whirlwind. And I was very surprised that I just kind of like called Karen and she answered. And I was like on the floor, almost crying. Metaphorically, guys, I was actually standing out on my front porch in the sunshine, trying to soak up some happy vibes. Okay. I was like, Karen, my heart hurts. And she was like, yeah, do these things. And I did those things. And I roasted s'mores.
I love s'mores.
And it
is impossible to be sad and eating a s'more. I'm sure someone has done this as a dissertation topic. Sadness and s'mores. It can't be done. Sadness and wearing polka dots. It cannot be done. I'm telling you, there's something about it. Plus you added something earlier in the day. That's amazing.
Well, we're in Tucson, right? So we don't roast s'mores. We try to combine them and get them back together.
You just set them outside for a few seconds like a microwave. Roasted, definitely. So Karen, you are so cool. So I went and Googled your name because I had no idea before that phone call, because I didn't want to show up and be a schmuck that had no idea who I was talking to and what their background and forte was. And I found a TEDx talk, which I was very excited about and learned all kinds of neat things. So how did you get hooked up with TEDx? How did they approach you? Is that how that works? I don't know.
Yes, they approached me and said, based on what we're seeing about you, we think that you have a story worth sharing. And the idea behind the story worth sharing was looking in the direction of how we define success and the rest of the story that we don't really see. And they were looking in the direction with all of the speakers of using creativity and curiosity to think about new solutions to old problems, right? Or new and inspiring ideas. And I remember in the lineup of all of the TED speakers, I remember a person before me going out and literally playing the guitar live on the stage as part of his speech and tapping into creativity. And I was fascinated because he's also a CIO. And I thought, that's very right brain, left brain. And he was talking about, activation. We're all trying to understand how to activate various aspects of our brain, our personality, our strategies for wellness. And he was talking about this link between doing something physical, for him it was playing the guitar, to activate creativity to solve problems inside of, a very technical framework. And it just fascinated me, the range of ways and experiences that people brought into that conversation. It's also, candidly, still to this day, probably the presentation or speech that required the most effort and learning on my part. So I'm glad I did it, even though at first it was a little overwhelming to think about, honestly.
Right. And you would think that getting up, because if you guys go find it, go look on YouTube for Karen's TEDx. Okay. It's impactful. It's amazing. And as you go through it, you realize that Karen is talking about herself. You're talking about yourself. And you think, oh, well, that should be, I know me, right? I know me. This is fine. This is going to be great. But that's not the case at all. That was not easy. That could not have been easy.
Yes. And part of storytelling, when you're telling a story about yourself and you're not famous, right? No one's showing up or watching the TED Talk because I'm Brene Brown or a famous athlete or anything along those lines. And so within that style of storytelling, what you're trying to do is present a big idea and spread a big idea. And as you're sharing your story, help people see themselves in your story. How do we look in the direction of our deepest level of humanity, what it is that connects us all together? And in so doing, I tell the story about my personal major medical setback to comeback, and also my hopes for the future of how technology becomes more context rich to help us lead better lives. And in telling that story, and then you're looking at this audience, it is emotional for all of us when we think about moments where we were at a really low point. And what we're trying to do is activate hope in the people who are listening or the people that we're engaging so that they can find hope in their own hopeless situation. And not fully going into the emotions of that was something that took a little restraint, right? You don't want to burst into tears on the stage or anything. Maybe you make people laugh. Those are the great things. But it does create an inflection point to see your own journey a little differently and to see the struggles that we all face and think about what's possible.
Yeah. And
That's awesome.
You have this incredibly rich background, right? Elements of Salesforce, trying to help make that happen, pull teams together, go through things like COVID. Oh my word, right? And upending entire elements. How much of that really came into play from your background and history, and because that's obviously your mindset, right? You care about the people that you're in charge of shepherding. How did all that come into play with that?
I think about how important it is to all of us to lead lives that matter. I mean, we all want to feel at our core like we matter and that we're seen and that we're heard and that we're valued for who we are and how we show up. And I think about being a part of a team or leading a team or writing a book or having a conversation like this as an opportunity to offer help and hope and ideally shine a light on some strategies and ideas that make it easier for people to live well and to work well. I mean, work is so often a big part of our identity, and it can also be a contributor to our health landscape for better or for worse. And I've been on both sides of it, and I know lots of people who have been too. And so I think about each one of those interactions, whether it's bringing a cross-functional team together to put together and run a series of customer advisory boards or executive roundtables, all the way through every word that goes into one of my books, as an opportunity to contribute to making it easier for people to see choices inside of their situations. We always have a choice. It's just when things get difficult or when we're burnt out or maxed out, I think we start to get tunnel vision. Like we just see the task or the meeting or the triple booked meetings that are right in front of us. And all we see is I've got to survive that minute long enough to get to the self-care moment to recover from the moment that didn't work for me. And so I try to just stay focused on stepping back from all of that and really seeing the person or the people that I'm engaging or hope to engage or inspire or lead, and think in terms of we all want to matter. We all want to feel seen and heard. How do I hold space for that right now?
That's awesome. That's awesome to be able, and what a moment of self-reflection and being able to monitor your own self with just so much care and consideration for others around you, which I notice whenever I'm exercising empathy in any situation that I instantly feel less anxious because the focus is off of myself and automatically onto someone else. And it's a very powerful thing that I think is underutilized. And I'm so glad that you're talking about utilizing more of that within those work environments. So that's really impactful. Very
and
cool.
Speaking of utilization,
guys,
speaking of utilization, I have to do a shout out to Jonathan. His wife made some happy cookies, a s'more wrapped in chocolate chip cookie dough. I feel deep empathy for how much resistance it would take to not eat like 15 of those and suffer like a moment of regret. I love this idea. I may repeat it with my godchildren. I will absolutely credit you, Jonathan. Please tell your wife, brilliant idea.
So Jonathan, I count as a good friend. I don't know how he feels. No, I do. So Jonathan, I count as a good friend. Jonathan was one of those, whenever I first came into cybersecurity as like a tech stack product consultant, I'm very wide versed on all kinds of vendors and you know, it's like 300 miles wide and 2 inches deep kind of situation. I know a little bit about everything kind of thing. Jonathan was actually one of my very first clients. So that's how it rolls. If you a Rachel client, you friends now. We friends. We talk about
I think
cookies.
we're making an assumption here. The assumption is that he did resist, right? He could have gone through all of those.
He didn't resist, but I know he knows something about burnout and wellness. So did you know that?
And now there's some wisdom from Rob. Everyone's your friend when you have cookies. Isn't that true? Free food is the gateway to friendship. I mean, my last name means eat in Italian, right? So, I mean, it is sort of my go-to expression of love. So I hear you, but the cookie thing is a moment of genius right there.
That's really, why couldn't I have got one like that? My maiden last name means boat. Like, it's nothing. It's like, get on the boat. Like, that's the RMS Rachel.
Mine is just fun of Cullen.
It seems ominous to cull something. Will. Oh my gosh. So, Will, how do you avoid burnout? Do you avoid it, or do you just find yourself landed in it and you're like, oh no, not again?
Oh, geez. Well,
Don't cry. Don't cry. I mean, you can if you want, but whoops, sorry. I didn't mean to ask that question, Will.
Well, the chief thing that keeps us going, right? We're not a normal environment because we're in education and we're working with students all the time. And we have, which can have a ton of burnout, right? Props for teachers, educators out there that are trying to do so much with so little all the time. But because of the space that we've been creating and because so much of it we've turned over to the students, it's always an adventure. And so the thing that really propels us is our vision, our direction, what we're trying to accomplish, and giving ownership to the students, and we have a broad range of students, right? So they have that background where they're coming in brand new green. We have single mothers. We have people that are trying to change their careers, every age group, right? And so that's got to be just like a major corporation, things that you're dealing with there. Folks that have all sorts of backgrounds, having to deal with all sorts of things in life, whether it's illness or whether it's taking care of family members or things like that. But it's the vision that keeps us going and propelled to fight against that burnout. Karen, when you're trying to communicate to a whole bunch of folks, because I know you, being in that position, you've dealt with folks in all those different situations. How do you hit the rubber meets the road, make a difference?
One of the most important learning experiences of my life was getting a degree from community college. And I am grateful for the work you're doing there. And I echo your shout out to teachers in every capacity. I mean, anyone who is tied to our education system, thank you for what you do. You're doing high impact, hard work. Thank you. And what I experienced at community college was in my classes, there was everyone from someone who just finished high school or a GED, and they were going on to, this was their version of, university, higher ed degree certification. There were people who were making a career change from something else. And so they were coming back to school to get new skills. There were people who were into jobs and had never gotten a degree or a certification. And in order to get promoted or maybe get paid more, they needed to complete this path. And from every walk of life. I mean, I remember students, missing class because their homes had been vandalized. I had students in my class and in my cohort who were living under bridges because they were homeless, and all the way through people who were employees at Fortune 500 companies and were executives and probably living in the 1%, statistically speaking. And something that was so informative to me about that experience was that everyone could contribute something. And it was remarkable to me that the chef instructing a class, for example, would hand us all the same recipe, because my degree is in hospitality administration and culinary arts. And we would all get the same recipe and we would all receive the same instruction. And every person using a standardized recipe, having received the same set of instructions, could be making the same hollandaise. And we would have to taste them all. So if there were 18 students in your cohort, you tasted 18 spoonfuls of hollandaise and no two ever tasted the same. And I think it's the most fascinating metaphor for connecting with people, which is we can all be focused on a shared outcome or a common experience. And the reality is, because we all apply our own unique context or interpretation or experience to the creation of that outcome, it doesn't mean that one is any better or more right than any other. We all started with the same inputs. We all got to the same output. And along the way, how we created just affected the ultimate product. And so I think about it in that direction. There isn't a right way. And one of my pet peeves is when people say like best practices. I mean, just because something is a best practice for someone else doesn't mean it's best for you. And I learned so much. I mean, I would be cooking on a grill next to someone who was, 18 years old, and they were crushing me, right? Like a buck. And I thought, isn't this interesting? Now, if I took that person to my day job, they would struggle. But this was something they were awesome at. And I just think everybody's got something, and connect with that. And I think also just connect at the level of, how do we all want to feel? I mean, we all want to feel valued. You were talking about using empathy, and how when you're empathetic, right, or you feel heard, your just overall demeanor changes. I think that's always true. And so I think about, how do you put that out there? I mean, how do you create that space for everyone that says you're valuable, your contribution is valuable, and we can all have the same outcome and get there 100 different ways? Awesome. My way isn't the right way. There's more than one way.
So if you're to give some wisdom from what you've gone through to students that are just starting out or trying to upend their lives and get into a new career or head in a different direction, what advice would you give them for holding on to that motivation and following those dreams?
Nobody has it all figured out. Nobody knows with certainty all of the time what they want to do or be when they grow up. Nobody has the confidence all the time to believe that they are awesome at what they do and will get to keep doing it. These are the great myths. When we watch people who are ahead of us on the journey, we think, well, they've got it all figured out and I don't, and they're going to figure that out. The only difference is some people are better bluffers than others. The reality is no one really knows. They just run a bluffing game that's a lot better. Now, sometimes that comes because they're bluffing themselves. They want to believe that they are happy and confident and on a path and have it all figured out. And they want to project that for a series of reasons that are all about what's in here. The reality is no one knows. No one has it all figured out. No one knows exactly what they're doing all the time. And every single human on planet Earth has a crisis of confidence at some moment or another that is sustained for more than a single moment in time.
Oh, and I feel much better now.
Yeah. I mean,
I love Jack's comment. The reason adults ask kids what they want to be when they grow up.
That's awesome. Isn't that so true? I'll sometimes do this when I'm talking about, how to build a powerful personal brand or dare to dream. And I'll ask people, how many of you know for certain what you want to be when you grow up? And I ask this to adults in the room, and there are usually like 2 people that raise their hands, right? They're like, I absolutely know. And everyone else is like, yeah, you either? Yeah, me neither. It's one of the most freeing thing to like look around. So, I mean, the next time you're around someone that needs to just put out there that they're perfectly buttoned up and have it all figured out, what I would offer to the students is just think to yourself, I wonder what they're hiding, because they don't really have it all figured out. They're just great storytellers. They're bluffing you. They're bluffing themselves. They're trying to bluff other people. And yes, imposter syndrome is real and it sucks. At the end of the day, we're all really good at something, though. We are all really, really good at something.
We are. I think the point is that you should never feel intimidated that they have it figured out and you don't. Because I think what Karen is saying is that none of us have an idea. Not really. I mean, we have the inklings, a sparkle, a glimmer, but no one person has it figured it out. You're only stronger together.
I always like that the smartest person in the room is all of us. And I think that's so true.
Yeah, did you see what I did there? I almost quoted you, but I didn't.
Put the ball on the tee, and hopefully I have the bat.
Say the thing, Karen. It's magical. I love it.
Yeah. And
perfect.
The other part of that imposter syndrome, Chris, is to realize that when you walk into a situation, you've got something to offer, and you probably are worth what you're trying to go for and get, right? That's what I come across with students. We have some brilliant students and say, no, go for the higher salary because you are worth it. You may not think that, I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, but once you get in the workplace and you look around, you're like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I have a personal experience about that. The one of my previous jobs, I spoke to some friends first before I counter until, because the recruiter was like, how much you want? And I was like, let me get back to you. So I went and I asked some friends because it was a role I'd never taken before. And it was also new to that company. So there wasn't like, a bar that was already set. And I asked some friends about it and they gave me some numbers. And I was like, no way. Yeah, right. And just for funsies, I threw the number out there and y'all, they gave it to me. And it was like, woo, mama getting a new driveway. Yeah.
And I think there's great, the connection between what you both said for me that is relevant in this, imposter syndrome debate, and for students and everyone else's, we dream to the level we believe we deserve. If you believe you only deserve a lower level role or the low end of the pay grade, then that's where you are. And, the challenge question is, are you asking for what you think you can get or asking for what you think you want or deserve or are worth?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Jack, he says, I hate it whenever they say yes too quick. Look, I had undervalued myself a bunch. I threw the number that my pals, my inner circle gave me out there as like, well, the worst they're going to say is no. Wow. Right? Like that was it. But yeah, they said yes real quick. And I went back and I felt like, oh, damn, I should have. But the reason I wanted to take the opportunity wasn't actually about the money. It was about the experience. I really, it sounds real corny, but I have a passion for what I do. I would have done it for less. Don't tell them. I don't want them to come back and be like,
Yay, Thor. I love the tail shadow going.
I know, it's perfect.
That's great.
I believe FedEx has arrived at my door this time. So anyway, he's back. He's good. He says, Mom, don't worry. I checked it out. They're totally terrified. They will never.
Maybe you smelled somebody baking cookies on the show. Who knows?
He does like food, foods, anything. I have 3 kids. They're 5, 6, and 8. They constantly drop what me and my husband lovingly call baby treats. So like, right? Because they're messy. They're kids. They're messy eaters. The dogs are under the table every time. Just like, they don't even have to hardly move anymore. They just open their mouths and gobble up whatever's falling off of the table onto the floor. I'm surprised. Him and our other dog are fairly healthy. I'm surprised they're not obese. There's a lot of mac and cheese inside of those puppy bellies. Okay. Like a lot.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
I have a Great Pyrenees. There's no looking up. They just kind of look at it.
I mean, ask Chris Roberts about his Great Dane, right? That he says, I think he put a post out a couple days ago too. I was scrolling through and saw my buddy Chris with Milo. And he said something about, I don't own Milo. I am Milo's custodian. If you've ever met Milo in person, have you ever been around a Great Dane?
I have,
Karen?
as a matter of fact. Yes, I have very good friends who have a Great Dane, and you must like sort of seed the floor. It's like there's a permanent red carpet that's sort of rolling just ahead of the dog, and you don't walk on the red carpet with the dog. You just sort of trail along the side, and the crowd will part to make space. It's how it goes. Oh, counter surfing. Yes, counter surfing.
He's amazing. He is amazing. I got to hang out with Milo in person a couple of years ago when we went to Tucson, and Chris came with us and brought Milo. We got an Airbnb just so that we could accommodate Milo. Oh. I say just because. It wasn't just because, but whenever I went down the guest list of people that were going to stay at the Airbnb with us in this one big house, Milo was listed like a person. I was like, Milo has requirements and I have to fulfill them first. And then that's how we picked our. Anywho, I love awesome. That dog. I really like that. I do not want to be a custodian for a Great Dane though, because I learned a lot hanging out with Milo for like 3 days. I'm good. I don't know. It seems like way too much for me. Anywho, That's a squirrel thing. So back to imposter syndrome and undervaluing or undervaluing yourself, especially when it comes to pay. I would have done it for the lower price. I didn't want to tell them that though, because I was like, Mama, getting a new driveway. And I did. It's nice. It's gravel. It's beautiful. I live in South Carolina, so it's muddy here a lot. But anywho, I actually grew up in Indiana.
Yes, I always love a fellow with Hoosier roots.
Yeah. Yeah. Only Hoosiers
exactly.
know what Hoosiers are.
Person from Indiana.
Yeah. I grew up. You know what the worst thing was growing up in a basketball-centric state and moving to Louisiana in a football state. I was like, why do we care? Ew. It was like, we're doing what? And it's hot outside? No. Can we do an indoor sport? I like basketball.
I remember attending the first game that the Pacers played in their new stadium. And so there was all kinds of hoopla, as you would expect. And they had this opening video. It's this montage of every manner of basketball folklore, much of which would be nostalgic if you spent a decent amount of time in Indiana. And I still remember, and your comment made me think about it so clearly. It came across the screen. It just said, in 49 states, it's just basketball. And then there was the pregnant pause. And then it said, but this is Indiana. And like this whole stadium just goes berserk. I'm like, this was visual graphics on a blank background. I'm like, well, there you go.
It is a big deal. Like here in Louisiana, the rivalry is between LSU and Alabama, right? It's always LSU and Bama. In Indiana, we don't even have to go that far. It was between IU and Purdue. It was like, y'all, I saw neighbors put fences up over this. Like if one had an IU flag flying in their little garden, right? And the other one had a Purdue flag, they were like, Jim, we can't talk to you anymore. Sorry. Like, unless it's on fire, don't come calling.
So
right? Like
here in Arizona, it's U of A and ASU. Now, give you an idea, right? Because we've got this hacker culture here, and Chris Bonhorst is one of that. Chris, when he is here in Tucson, U of A, he is the biggest ASU fan. When he goes up to Phoenix, ASU, he's the biggest U of A fan. He likes to poke the bear.
Yes. Or play Switzerland. I guess you're just neutral to wherever you are.
Yeah. I like sports ball. People will ask me, like, I don't follow like real close, but I know enough to, if everybody's like, hey, let's go to a game, I'm like, I will enjoy that. Yes, we should do that. That's about as much as it gets. I'm not a huge Dire fan on either side of the fence, but I will enjoy a good
I'm
match.
not much into sports, and my wife loves it.
I love it. We're football and basketball people, and I also love baseball. Nostalgic for me. But.
Yeah, we watch movies.
We got a big deal too. It's a big deal. Baseball around here is a big deal too. Which again, I don't understand. You guys, this week, and Will, you're going to come back at me. I know you are, and I'm going to fight you with humidity every time. Okay, just every time, automatically. I'm going to be like, yeah, but what about the water particles in the air, Will? You don't have any of those. It's going to be 100 degrees and has been 100 degrees every day this week in my front yard. It is horrible. There are people out there. They're out there right now. They love football and baseball so much. All the high schools, because I live in my neighborhood is like 2 blocks away from our town's high school. I can hear them out there. And the band. I feel so bad for the band. I'm just waiting for some poor tuba player to pass out. It is so hot. And they're so dedicated to their thing that they're out there sweating to death.
Yeah.
Nope. Can't.
Yeah. Cool.
Can't do that. You'd have to give me double what I thought I was worth. Instead of half as much.
So what advice, Karen, would you give to students getting going? How do you make stuff happen?
Start small. And here's what I mean by that. We often think and plan in terms of the grand gesture. You're burnt out. You need a 2-week exotic vacation, not 2 minutes between meetings, right? We think and plan and act in terms of the grand gesture, and we get very attached to it must be this big thing. The challenge with that is that thought process often keeps us stuck in place because it feels like we're going to need a substantial amount of time or resources or expertise to get to that big outcome or deliverable or grand gesture. And so I advocate for the 5-minute fix. And this is what I think about. For any big dream that you have, this could be losing a weight, doing a triathlon, working on your resume, finding a job, working on the final project that's due at the end of the semester. Think and act at the beginning, especially in terms of 5-minute increments. How many 5-minute steps could you come up with that you could take that would help you make progress? An example, if it's you need to find a job and you're a student, and the first step is you need to refresh your resume, a 5-minute fix idea to make progress is email someone and ask them to send a copy of their resume to you. Next 5-minute idea might be you go on LinkedIn and you look for someone who has a job similar to yours and you copy and paste their LinkedIn profile. Now you've got 2 examples that you can work from. Third one might be you sit down and write down all of the strengths or something that you've delivered or start typing those. And so, yes, it is challenging to look for a job right now in lots of ways. So 5 minutes at a time, what could you try? And here's the key. 5 minutes at a time is doable. And I'm a big fan of doing the doable. 5 minutes at a time also helps you create momentum. So if you only invested 1% of your time each day toward that big outcome, you would have doubled your progress in 72 days. That feels doable. 5 minutes at a time, 1 step at a time. Hey, if you hate writing a resume and you're going to block out 8 hours on a Saturday to do it, you're probably never going to schedule that block of time. And then what happens? Oh, I'm a terrible person. I'm failing at this. I'm never going to be successful. All the voices in your head start sabotaging you. Give yourself the gift of starting small. 5 minutes at a time, as many things as you can try. And by the way, if the 5 minutes is over and the thing you tried wasn't really productive, you've lost 5 minutes. It's not like a whole day, a week, a month. So start small and help yourself gain some momentum.
That's awesome. Did you learn that the hard way?
Yes. And it ties to that feeling of burnout. I would start to notice that I would be dreaming of entire weekends, for example, that I could just be in my pajamas, sleep in, watch mindless television and do nothing. And the reality is that's not my recipe for feeling great. And what I started realizing is when I am daydreaming that I need enormous chunks of time to escape or recover from something, I am out of alignment. I'm either burnt out, I'm living or working outside of my values and it's exhausting me. And what I realized was if I would cancel or postpone or reschedule one meeting, I would somehow feel better. It's like, oh, I just took 30 minutes for myself. And instead of doing a meeting, I'm going to sit outside and read a book or watch a TED Talk or take a walk around the block. It's like it was the discovery that gifting myself permission to go slow, to go fast made me feel better. And it didn't take a whole weekend or spending a bunch of money on a vacation. It took just a little breathing room. Yeah. And so then I just started applying that mentality to other things, especially things that we all have to do that we either don't love or we feel like they're outside of our strengths, but they're sort of a necessary evil, right? And so I thought, you know what, if I only did 5 minutes and then I gave myself a little reward at the end of 5 minutes for doing it, whatever that is, walk around the block, pet your dog, have lunch a little early, whatever that looks like for you, make a cup of coffee. Then I would reinforce in my own head kind of that endorphin rush of like, you did a hard thing and you did it for 5 minutes and now you get a reward. And so then every time the 5 minutes got a little easier until I could do like 10 minutes. It's candidly also sometimes how I edit my books, because by the time I'm in that final edit, I've read it so many times, even though I love it, I'm no longer interested in reading it again. And so I create like a little reward system where I'm like, read 5 pages and then take a break. And then do something different. Come back later, read 5 more pages. And it's like, oh, that's doable. 5 pages at a time, you get through it. As opposed to that feeling of it's a beautiful sunny Saturday. And now I need 12 hours that I'm going to be at my desk while everyone else is outside playing to just read this thing again and figure out that a comma is in the wrong place in the sentence. So I just think big, act
Right.
small.
So that's
I really
self-programming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And it's also
100%.
battling guilt. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It's part of the affirmations that I run through with my kids every morning is I control my own happiness. That's one of our affirmations that we do. And it's really high level cover of that, of everything that Karen just said. I control my own happiness, which means you have all of the power in the world to change your attitude and your perception of what your reality is and how it's going to affect you. And no matter what anybody else does, that is your choice to accept their reality as your own or to completely just veto that. No, just delete. No, I don't accept that at all.
Doesn't mean it's easy.
No, it's not. And it takes a lot of like, you have to be in that moment and like, let your don't feel all your feelings at once, but let your brain do the feeling kind of thing, which is this a moment where I have choices?
Ooh.
Right? Yes, it is.
And that's where choice lives, right? Choice only lives in this present moment. It does not exist in the past, and it does not exist on this big future horizon. Choices happen right here, right now, in each moment, moment by moment.
Yep, exactly. Look, Will's like,
well,
this is deep, man.
I'm thinking that's right up there with like love is a decision, not just a feeling, right?
Yeah. It's not you get feelings that come with it, but it is a decision. It's a decision every day to love your job, love your life, love your kids, love your husband, love your wife, love your partner, whoever that is, love people around you, love your dog, love your kitty. I'm not against cats. Small children, litter boxes, cats. It's a bad idea. You can love your cat too. That's fine. But no, it really is. It's a choice. And you're right, Will. It's a choice that you make every day. I love John Davis. So John is also a very, very good friend and mentor of mine. John is hilarious. He does love. When he says he loves love, he loves love. He tells me all the time. He's like, you and Josh, you guys, just the dream. Absolutely. He actually asked me about your wife the other day, Will. He was like, what's Will's wife like? And I was like, I don't know a lot, but I know that she's amazing and she can Will. And
anyone who gets my humor, ooh.
That is salt of the earth. We were talking about how punny Will can be sometimes the other day, and I'm sure. Does she roll her eyes, Will, or does she encourage you?
Well, both, right?
Yeah, it depends on what choice she's making in that moment.
Oh no, I love her dearly, and she has spunk. She's awesome.
Yeah, like he said, she must be a ray of sunshine, just like him. So Karen, how impactful was your family support? Is your inner circle support? How impactful is that to
critically
success,
important?
Honestly.
And a couple of examples come to mind, and along the way, while I share them, because Chris mentioned, he's getting burned out from searching for a job, and we just talked about the 5-minute fix. Chris, if you're willing, maybe put in the chat what kind of role you're looking for, because you never know, someone here might be able to help you. That could be your 5-minute fix for today. Just a thought, if you're willing.
Yep.
Maybe someone here can help activate or might have some ideas for you. Along those lines, one of the most grounding traditions for me is that every Sunday, starting in 2005, when my grandparents moved back to Indiana, I started cooking Sunday dinner for them. And I vowed that time would be sacred. And when my grandmother passed away in 2013, we were all devastated. And, when someone in your life exits like that, it does in some ways change those traditions, right? Or it threatens them. Like, are you going to continue to sit through the weirdness for a while and acknowledge that it doesn't feel the way it did before because someone who was a treasured part of that tradition is missing? And my grandfather and I stayed committed to that Sunday dinner tradition. My grandfather is going to be 100 years old on December 20th. He still lives in his own home, takes walks every day, plants a garden, day trades stocks on his 3 iPads, smartwatch, and 2 laptops. And he is a perpetually curious person. And something that I was thinking about at the end of the year last year was how much I've learned from him. He's also a first-generation American and a World War II Navy veteran. And I started thinking about his wisdom and also how much that gathering tradition with him on Sundays means to me and keeps me grounded and feeling connected and loved and seen and cared for and all of those things. And I made the decision to write a book about him. He is the subject of my 5th book that's coming out in the fall. It's called Sundays with Salvatore, 52 recipes to cultivate conversation, connection, and community. And it's themed around our Sunday dinners. Yes. And
I'm going to buy that one too.
Yes.
Just so you know.
He wrote the afterword.
Right.
Yeah. He not yet. Not ready yet. He wrote the afterword to the book. We're in layout and design right now. He wrote the afterword to the book. And I wrote the 52 chapters, obviously 52 weeks in a year. And in each chapter, there's a story. There's a piece of his wisdom called Salvatore Says. There's a conversation spark. So imagine you gathered people for a dinner or a gathering tradition of your own. And there's a prompt to make this wisdom your own. And then there's a section called Mangia, which is a recipe, a family recipe. And my hope with the book, besides paying tribute to someone I care about and preserving him in lots of ways for our family, is also to inspire people to create a gathering tradition of your own. Even if it's a one-time thing where maybe you open that book to a page and you pick a recipe and you all cook it together and you talk about his wisdom and laugh and share a story. I think there's something so powerful about the cure to this isolation and burnout that we're feeling and hearing and reading about is having a real conversation with someone and eating some real food together and talking, holding that space for each other. Yes, exactly. Be on your phone. I hope you're looking up one of our recipes. And yes, so it's one of the most important traditions. And thank you, Kim, for that support. And Michael shared there every Sunday, starting in mid-December, I started posting every Sunday on LinkedIn, something about him and what we're doing with our Sunday dinner. And it's so interesting because people will now send me messages on LinkedIn or they will comment about someone who they've lost in their life or a tradition they miss or something that they resonate with about him or a question they want me to ask him when we're together. And a lot of times too, I'll get people that will contact me and say, I know you won't respond to my message today because it's Sunday and you're with your grandfather. And I think, isn't that so interesting? It's not like I explicitly set a boundary of like, don't ever contact me on Sunday, but people were like, this is obviously important to you. I will acknowledge and respect that boundary without you even having to state it. But overall, I think about the power of that tradition and how much it means to me. And I have wonderful other friends and family members in my life that I'm so grateful for as well. I just think about that one as such an enduring and special tradition. And it really started out of my intention to have no regrets. Like I did not want to be at their funeral thinking, I wish I had made more time to spend with them. No regrets.
You know what? You guys are my tradition. My little light bulb went off. This is my little gathering tradition.
And see how great you feel when you do it. And I can just tell by the tone of the conversation, you've created a space where people love to be here with you. And they experience that joy of being in on the gathering tradition and how that feels. I mean, this is how belonging feels.
It's wonderful. It's beautiful. This is my gathering tradition. Welcome to it. Sorry. You guys are my free source of therapy and grounding. It works out. No, I notice whenever I'm working on putting the show together or sending out, invitations for new people to join in or anything like that. And for those who are new here, this is unsponsored. I do this on my own time. Okay. Nobody here is getting paid. Like, sorry, we're cheap. We talked whenever we relaunched the show again, whenever Ryan was on. You guys can go back and check that out on the YouTube too, about gaining sponsorship. And the only reason why we're trying to gain any sort of sponsorship, because the overhead to put the show together is very low. One, I do it. I'll do it for free. And two, some of the tooling that I use is fairly inexpensive. It's fine. We can just write that off to taxes. And then the idea is that we would gain sponsorship and put it into a grant program to help students such as the ones that, Karen, you came across at community college, living under bridges and the homeless. Some of the students that Will has seen and has greatly impacted, to give them peace of mind and ease that somebody's going to help them pay for the groceries, pay for the certificate that they can't afford to get the better job so they can pay for their own groceries. In Louisiana, we call that making groceries, by the way, just so you know. There's a little local flair of culture for you.
Very cool.
Right? We're going to help you make your groceries. And that's the idea. And it's still working out, on some of the logistics of that. I know Ryan is still in the background helping us out with some of those things. But anyway, that's the kind of thing this is my passion right here. This is that gathering that Karen's talking about where she goes. And Karen, that is beautiful. I want to pre-order the book. Okay. And two, I feel a little bad because yours is so much prettier than mine. Just the idea. So the idea for mine was my dad is so let me back up a little bit. So my grandparents were first generation Americans. Well, my grandfather anyway, he was a little Jew from Cincinnati, and my grandmother was a tall hillbilly Catholic from the Appalachian Mountains. Okay. Don't ask. It's weird. So anyway, my dad has this very colorful mix of sayings. Okay. Some of them are a bit Yiddish. Some of them are a bit like country Appalachian Mountains stuff. Oh, it's a mess. And I was like, I need to take the dadisms and put them in like a coffee table book with like pictures of stuff. Like he'll say stuff like, your ass sucks pond water. Who says that? Who says that? I'm like, that's just going to be the quote. Like, and I'm going to put this coffee table together of all these funny sayings that my dad used to say all the time. And just, for friends, like it's not going to be a big deal. And then put the little blurbs about what it means and stuff like that. Yours is way better.
Hey, you'll always be happy you wrote it down, that you captured him and that you didn't wait. And also, if people didn't see the message, Chris is looking for a role in cybersecurity. And he would like to do cloud cybersecurity specifically and is working on a certification. Yeah. So if you can help Chris in his quest for a cybersecurity role, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So Chris, I would be interested to the side if you can DM me just to talk a little bit about. So if you don't understand how I became the Human API, it's because I talk to a lot of people, and the way that my fantastic neurodivergent brain works is while I'm talking to you, I will be inspired suddenly to interject all the conversations with all the ways that I want to help you without you having to ask. Because I don't have any regulation on social cues. Oh, look, yeah, Mike did hang out with my dad. I forgot about that. We went to breakfast when I came to Indiana. My friend got very, very ill, and I went to be with her, and I got to hang out with Mike for a little while, and brought Dad along so he could visit with his sister. But anywho, Chris, message me on the side and let me know what it is that you've kind of done so far. So maybe I can throw some ideas at you. I'm sure other people in the chat would be also happy for you to just DM them. If you guys are interested in helping out Chris, just reach out, connect, DM. It'll be your 5 minutes. That'll be your 5 minutes for today.
And that's awesome. Just like Karen said, take advantage of all different possibilities that come your way, right? And she listed off several. hit LinkedIn, put in a job application,
You did.
make connections.
Yep. Those things. So guys, we're gonna start closing up here. Karen, do you have any final thoughts or final words for our audience? Oh, Chris said thanks.
Absolutely. Yes. People are here to help. What I would say is something I've discovered is that I used to think that, kind of success was reserved for someone else, somewhere else, like there was a secret success society. And if only we did these certain things that we could all belong to it. And what I've really come to understand over time is success is as you define it. And you have permission to redefine your definition of success and to align your life with that definition in any given moment. At the end of the day, success is not a destination. It's not a location. It's not a job title. It's not a balance in your bank account. It's available anytime, anywhere to anyone. It just starts with how you see it. That's the most important thing. Anyone can be successful.
I think that's great. Again, pre-order. I want to pre-order your book. All right. Well,
get on the team. I guess we need to start standing up that link. Yes.
Karen, I want to thank you for sharing your heart and your passion behind that. And I really, really appreciate, teacher, right? Sharing those elements for growth for people that are battling all sorts of different things that we can't even imagine or see right now. And that you're one of those folks out there with the heart to try to make a difference and try to change. I really appreciate that. And human being to human being, thank you very much for doing so.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking that first crazy phone call where I just definitely neurodivergently overshared. And then also coming and hanging out with the group today. I hope you enjoyed it.
It was awesome. Thanks so much for the opportunity and great to meet your fantastic community of people. Keep gathering.
We are. Oh, next Friday, guys, we're going to do it again. I'm going to grab Bert Robinson, see what he's up to next Friday. If you guys don't know, Bert's been on previous episodes years ago. And he's with a really cool passwordless new way to do passwordless. All right. I know you've heard it before and you're all like rolling your eyes. You're like, you're right. No, it really is. It's pretty cool. It's called EthoPass. So come back and see us and we'll poke holes in all of Bert's theories. He's ready.
He's also a U of A guy.
And yeah, he is. So we'll see you guys same bat time, a little bit different bat channel. We did this one a little later in the day for Karen's scheduling because we bow down and say thank you. But it'll be 11 a.m. Central Time. So mark your calendars, block them off now. Don't let anybody put a meeting there. Or you can always come back and view the episodes on the YouTube channel. If you just want to pop them in the car while you're driving around, if you still do that. I don't drive very well anyway because I work from home now. I just live here. But anyway, thank you guys for grabbing a cup and circling up. We'll see you next time. Have a beautiful weekend.